Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Ratitude Podcast. I am so excited. I think I start that every single time because it's true. I am so excited about having our guest here. His name is Asa Patterson, and I met him, maybe 10 years ago or so at this money thing. It was kind of a really interesting process where you would buy first trust deeds and sell them and all this stuff. I don't remember anything, but one of the things, maybe the only thing I remember about it was they had one of the best speakers I've ever heard is kind of leading the training. And his name was Asa. And he's a track guy. Like, what could be better? Right. He was a track guy in the Big Ten, and he knows everything about money. He knows everything about investing and entrepreneurship, and mostly he knows about how to be like the coolest guy there is. So Asa, welcome to the Ratitude Podcast.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here and excited to be on the show. Thank you.
Yeah. So Asa, what are you doing now? Maybe that's what I should start with because we haven't spoken in quite a while. Right. What are you doing now? Because I know it's got to be something amazing.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I have created a full-service financial service company, Premier 72. I have a partner, her name is Sandra Noble, and we really focus on financial literacy. We feel that the more someone knows and the more educated they are on something, the more they can ask questions, and they know better than we do what is good for them. And based on that, we can lead them down the right path.
You know, I got a question for you. And I told you before we started that you're going to say some things that I'm going to lead a direction, and I have no idea where it's going to be. But I have an interesting question.
Okay.
With what you just said. One of my observations when I was coaching at Pepperdine and being a father of 20, 30-year-old kids, they never learned any kind of financial investment strategies, of just simple things like, writing checks and balancing checkbooks and those kinds of things. With my son, I've decided that I'm going to invest in him and teach him investing. I sent him the brand new Tony Robbins book on financial things to read. I don't think he's going to read it, but I sent it to him anyway, just in case. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to give you a little bit each month. It's going to be sort of like I think it was the NAIC, the National Association of Investment Clubs. I was in that for a while and helped found one of those. And it was really a good process to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, there's all sorts of vehicles you can invest in, but I wanted him to at least learn that and to do some analysis. Okay. So my question for you is, because this was an observation of all my kids at Pepperdine too, is they don't know what to do. Might your services, or do you know of places where they can teach these young people actually how to do some of these things from the basics all the way up through investing, including on some of the new kinds of things like cryptocurrency, which I think people should be in, not very much yet, but they ought to be exposed to it. They ought to give, somewhere between 2 to 5% of their money in cryptocurrency because it's going to go to $1 million a Bitcoin. Or something like that, I just believe. So with all that kind of background, you can answer any kind of question you want. It's sort of free form for you, and I'm excited to hear what you got to say.
So that's a very, very open question. And it's interesting because 10-year-olds today think money is the debit card. Because we're going to cashless society, they think the debit card is actually the money and don't have any concept of what's behind it. So that's the biggest challenge. I don't think any children today or let's say anyone under 30, they don't understand balancing a checkbook. What is that? So we have moved so far into kind of a feel of monopoly money that it's not anything that's real because you don't see it. You don't see it moving. I remember when I was growing up, I would have $25 in my pocket and I would see something that I want for $5, but I wouldn't buy it because I'm looking at the actual cash in my hand and I would have to part with a $10 bill because of taxes. So it's unfortunate that there's no one set area for financial education because so many people have different appetites. Some people like stocks, some people like crypto, some people like real estate. So I would just really focus on helping your son understand where he is and what he wants to get into. And then you can kind of backtrack it from there. If he loves, let's say, track and field, you can look at the sponsors of track and field events and then look at the companies that sponsor those events and kind of go with it that way. because it's such a wide field that it's hard. And that's one of the things with the company I founded was we focus on starting at the basics. We attempt to kind of get an assessment of where someone is when they're thinking about money, because money is so emotional. It's really more of a mindset. A definition that I love that about money is that money is the idea backed by confidence. So I would start there, finding out where he is and what is he like, and then give him tools to look at the things that he's already using. I call that a grounded assessment, where he can really identify with what some of those things are when it comes to money.
Yeah, so I kind of have done that.
Okay.
And his answer was whatever Elon Musk is doing.
Perfect.
And I said, oh, that's great. So now just Google, what is Elon Musk doing? Let's find out what companies, and he said artificial intelligence too. And I said, perfect, because it's maybe a little bit risky, but I don't really care. This is sort of, in a way, play money. It's really to teach them some investment kind of strategies. And I remember I read a book kind of when I was in that NAIC. It might have been, it wasn't Peter Drucker, but it was someone like that wrote a book. And what he said he did was he would take his teenage daughters to the mall and then just give them a little bit of money and then watch where they went and what they were interested in buying. And then he investigated those stocks, and he invested in some of those kinds of things. And I've always remembered that. And that's what I told Tom to do is, what are you interested in? What you just said.
Right.
Is if he happened to be interested in track and field, then go investigate that. Because there's so many things to invest in, right?
Right. It's so many things to invest in. And you just have to find out where people are to kind of give them the spark, because, money is just such a taboo topic, due to the embarrassment about what you're making or due to the embarrassment about how you're spending it. I think that's a great place to start. So that helps me help my 8-year-old kind of begin her process as well. So this is good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come back to this, but on this line,
yes,
I want to know, because one of the things I like to do in our Gratitude podcast is find out how people's minds develop, because that's what I'm trying to give to our audience is some clues or some different ways, because everyone develops so differently. Everyone's got a unique path and unique journey, and there isn't one. And I would be remiss if I said, you should do this, blah, 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 blah. So rather, I'm interested in how each person, their mind developed to the amazing people they are, because all of our guests are amazing and you're like the most amazing guy there is. So if you could think about how your mind developed, that whatever processes you can think of for your mind development, please share that with our audience.
Wow. So that's a great question. I've been an athlete all growing up. I started in track and field as a youngster. I tried to play football. My parents didn't want me to play football. I ended up playing in high school, was recruited to colleges for football scholarships, went on a couple of recruiting visits, and I saw how big these guys were. I was a tailback. I'm like, no way, right? So then I shifted to track and field. So track and field is an individual sport. It's just me against the track, me against the stopwatch. So I wasn't a individual that played well with others because of the individual nature of track and field. So up until about, I would say a good 5-10 years ago, I've been an independent individual, a solopreneur, that I was doing everything in my business, from, opening the doors to closing the doors to mopping to, doing everything. So to really answer that question, it's really about how can I get better? I'm always thinking about, that's such an interesting question, Robert. I'm not sure how to answer that. Can you give me a little more to kind of?
Okay. So for me, an instrumental thing was when I was working for Exxon as a chemical engineer, and all of a sudden they offered a program called Investment in Excellence. And it was my first personal development course. I read a couple books before, cybernetics and a few of those kinds of things,
yes.
But they were interesting to me, but I didn't really get it. And all of a sudden, this program that Exxon offers really great personal development courses that are just sort of optional. And I signed up for that, and it just opened my mind up. And from there, I started kind of really working it. but not too much. My growth was kind of like this. And all of a sudden, a friend invited me to a Tony Robbins event when I didn't even know who Tony Robbins was,
Okay.
other than the guy that hypnotized Jack Black in the movie Shallow Hal on the elevator. And I thought, oh, I'll go to that thing. And then I went to that, and then, whoa, that blew me away, because until that point, I did everything on my own. I didn't think of having a coach, for example. And I remember Tony saying that high performance people have coaches. And I go, that seems like, in my previous thinking, that was cheating. That was, you have to do it on your own, but having a coach would be cheating. And all of a sudden he said, high performance people do have coaches. And I go, I want to be a high performance person. I think I am, but I want to be higher performance. So I got a coach, and that has morphed into going to all sorts of things. And now I probably have about 5 different coaches that are working with me because I want to be even higher performance. I have inner spiritual journey coaches. I have 3 inner coaches. And I have a relationship coach. The one thing I don't have is a money coach. So I think after this, I'm going to sign up with you, because I probably have just kind of let that go and haven't been really smart about it. And I need to, maybe that's why we went there. But anyway, my mind kind of do it really through the personal development world. But I had a growth mindset to start with, and just this competitive nature that you have. And that kind of drives us externally. And now I'm finding that that's driving me internally. I want to really understand how I work inside. So that's my path.
So thank you for sharing that. And I'll go back to around 2010, 11, after the market meltdown. When that happened, I lost a lot and mentally was just totally out of it. And I hired a coach, and she was excellent because she really helped me get external. A lot of times, you heard the saying, you can't see the trees for the forest, or you can't see the forest for the trees, or whatever, however that goes. I was really so micro-focused, hyper-focused at what I was attempting to do. And she really helped me to pull back and look at the entire board. And that helped me, again, go to a different training. And as I go to trainings, just like you do, it just opens up so much more, because it allows you to kind of step back, listen to what other people are saying, and see how those things are applying to what you are doing or not doing. And it allows you to continue to move forward. I'm a retired captain in the Marine Corps, and that was an awesome environment because of the pursuit of excellence that environment fostered. I never missed a day of work, even though I was only there 5 years. I'm medically retired because I broke my neck, and we can have a conversation about the mindset behind that too. But that environment, Robert, was so growth oriented. Best oriented, and I wasn't aware of how wonderful an environment it was until my first corporate America experience. I would tell you, probably less than 2 weeks of working a corporate job, I was at home thinking of how can I not have to go to work, and so it's environment. That's one part of it. You have to surround yourself with people who are growth oriented, who are solution oriented, and that are working to work with you. So that was something that was interesting. As I worked with the coach, she really helped me pull back. So that's really one of the things that I love, and going to different trainings, because as you meet other people that are attempting to better themselves, for me, a lot of times I hear and see myself in their conversations. And that's what I'm finding that is so powerful. The older I get, there's so many examples in everyone around us of the things that we do or don't do or should be doing that help me because of the ability of stepping back and attempting to look at the entire board.
So do you think you had that growth mindset your whole life? Like, is that innate, or did it come from your parents? Where did it start?
So I can remember being about 8 years old. It was Christmas Day. And for as far as I can remember, my parents, it was my brother and myself and my mother and dad. They used to get us, I guess we were such good children, all the presents that we wanted on our Christmas list, we got them, right? And everyone on the block would be at our house on Christmas Day because their parents were not focused on providing for their children like my parents were. So I can remember thinking and being sad for those kids because they didn't have what I had. 8 years old. I'm thinking I'm sad. I'm supposed to be happy, enjoying myself playing with all these children. So I've always had a sense of awareness of what other people are not doing that may or may not be the best thing for themselves and or their family.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really started from there. And I guess that was the beginning of me being in service of others and attempting to help others. I have a master's degree in education, right? To teach and help people become better in the education realm, in the Marine Corps to serve and protect the country, and now with the education company and the financial service company is again to teach and educate. So I think I've always been of the mindset of helping people help themselves.
You just mentioned education company. We didn't talk about that. What's your education company?
And it is around financial literacy, real estate, different aspects of real estate, whether you are a lender or you're doing a rent to own or you're doing an Airbnb, those kinds of things. Because to me, real estate is a lower barrier of entry that will allow an individual to amass a lot of wealth in a very short period of time.
Okay, very, very cool. So it's all kind of financial related.
Yes. When I started in real estate, I didn't have a credit score or a nickel to rub together. So I had to come up with creative ways to acquire a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest thing for me because it allowed me to have the creative juices of solving a problem. For me, real estate is about finding someone who has a property, who has a problem with that property and bringing a solution to them. And it's just helped.
So how did you get involved with that? I remember when I was a young engineer at Exxon, we got all these ads about, buy a house with no money down. And three of us young engineers, we went to one of these things and, they're free.
Yep.
And then you buy all their books and audios and things like that. Yep. So we put our money together. We bought one program and then we Xeroxed all the pages so that the three of us had it. And then we go, okay, we're going to go out there and buy a house with no money down. And so we followed their processes. This was in California, in Thousand Oaks, California, and prices are really high. And we didn't even come close to buying anything with no money down and eventually kind of gave up. But it opened up my mind to creative thinking about real estate. Right. Whereas later on, I did some creative things. There was one time where I had purchased a house contingent upon the sale of a house that I hadn't bought yet because it was contingent upon the sale of another house that I hadn't bought yet. Right. And I had a house that was contingent upon selling that in order to get that one, and they let me do it. And when I came to propose it, and it was kind of stepwise, they said, well, we don't know. No one's ever suggested this. Yes. I'll check it out. And they checked it out with headquarters in Los Angeles. They said, yeah, if he pays the deposit, let him do it. Yep. And so I did that. And it was crazy. I moved into one house and sold that house 1 week later for $300,000 profit. And then I moved these were brand new houses, California's slow growth. And you stood in line at a new development that came out and tried to get a house. They sell out these developments in 1 day or less than a day. And I stood in line at these places and put my name in and put down at that time only $2,000 or $3,000 deposit to buy a house. Yep. And then contingent upon a sale of a house that I hadn't even owned yet. So it opened up my mind. So my question to you is, how did you go from being this incredible Marine protecting our nation to a real estate guru?
Well, like I said, my exit out of the Marine Corps was I broke my neck. I had a fracture in my 6th vertebrae.
How'd you do that?
Training with the Marine Corps. I think I did it in 2007 and didn't have surgery until, 97 and didn't have surgery until 2000. Just training and what they said was a disc popped out. And there was 2 fractures in the 6th vertebrae. Well, it didn't show up. In the Marine Corps, if you're not bleeding out or just dropping dead, then you're fine. And I was an officer, officers don't go to sick call. So that environment allowed me to walk around for about 2.5 years with a broken neck. I finally was referred to a neurologist, and the neurologist said, oh, you have a slip disc pushing on the nerves going to the left arm because I was losing strength and numbness in this hand. When they opened me up, I had 2 fractures. So they said that it was healing and cracking and healing, and the calcium had built up where they didn't see it from the x-rays. So I spent over a year on what they call sick bay. right? Where I was doing my best to be invisible, because in the Marine Corps, if you're not training, what are you there for? And I started reading the books. My first book that I read, it was two books that just changed my life. The first one was a book by a gentleman named Reginald Lewis. Now, he was the first Black billionaire. The name of the book was Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Right? And that title just like, well, what's this about, right?
Yeah.
So in that book, they were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in the same way I was talking about $10 and $20. And that book led me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. My mind was blown. I was opened up, never to return to the person I once was.
Yeah.
And that's what started the journey. And being on medical hold for so long, not knowing what kind of job I could have or anything like that, I started learning more about investments and financial instruments. And I found that all those things that I was learning about require some money, right? If you're going into the stock market, options, calls, puts, you got to have some kind of money somewhere to be able to leverage those things. And that led me to creative real estate. And the more I read about that, I was like, wow, I can do this. And at that time, this is going way back. Do you remember a guy named Carlton Sheets? You ever heard that name?
No.
Okay. So he was like the first one. I bought his education program, and it was cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And I was listening to his stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. I wonder if this can really happen. And just like you and your partners, I tried to do it, and it wasn't working. And one night I saw a infomercial. Hey, you can invest in real estate and become a next millionaire. And look at all these students' success. And I was like, okay, I'm going to the free training. The free training for me filled in so many gaps. I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been missing. So I went from the free training to the paid 3-day training.
Yes,
and again, it was filling in so many gaps. I was just so excited I was in heaven. And
who was that with?
That was with a guy named Russ Whitney.
Oh, I think I might have bought that program.
Okay, so this was so many years ago. Russ Whitney, he's still around, but not around. Russ Whitney, which is the Wealth Intelligence Academy, became Rich Dad Education.
Oh, okay.
And once I started getting those gaps filled in, I paid to go to that training. And for me, when I left the 3-day boot camp, they gave a homework session, which was an outline of what to do. Now, being a Marine, I know how to follow orders. And so I'm following them, checking them off. And that led to a deal. The stuff works if you work it. I just had so much tenacity after getting out of the Marine Corps. I was like, this has to work. And when I closed my first deal and made money on it, I was like, this is real, And my dad's favorite word for what I do in real estate is, wow. I can't believe that happens, right? That's how it started. And like I said before, if I hadn't started with creative real estate, if I would have had money, the creative juices would not have been flowing. And when you have downturns in the market, you have to have creativity to be successful. So I'm just grateful that I didn't have cash or credit in the beginning, because it allowed me to have much more flexibility and control now that I do have cash and credit.
Now, this is exactly what I wanted to hear, is how you went from, this Marine to now. Now I'm starting to get it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because someone listening here could say the same thing. One of the things that you do have, because you have that beautiful discipline that you learn in the Marines and military, or people could get it other ways. Like for me, as a distance runner, I had discipline from being a distance runner. You got to go run your miles. Or someone else in whatever they do. Maybe they're a piano player. You got to play the piano, 10,000 practice hours in order to be good.
Right.
Or whatever it is. People can develop it once they become aware that there's an opportunity everywhere in whatever area of your life that you want to exceed in, that you want to be good in. But having that, I'm always curious, like why or how people develop that, almost that competitiveness to be the best. Because if you could go even back further from that, back beyond your 8 years old, I'm guessing you had this competitiveness in you because that propelled you, first of all, to be a track athlete.
Right.
But I'm guessing you were competitive in other areas besides track.
Yes. Everything that I did, it was all about winning. It's just different. For example, the world is different, and even competition is different. It burns me up to see professional athletes at the end of a game on TV high-fiving and shaking hands with the team that just beat them. I don't understand it. If I were the owner of that team, everybody would be fined. I'm fining everyone because you just lost. Yeah. That's not your friend, so it's just a little bit different when you have the competitive hat on. After the game, when you're going out, hey, have a good time with them, have a conversation with them, but you just lost the competition. Your job is to win. We're paying you to win, right? So I've always had a huge competitive nature.
Now, where did that come from, Asa? Where did that come from? Do you have any idea? I don't know the answer necessarily. Right. I think it was innate to me because my parents didn't push me in things, and I had to have the best grades. Later on, I had to have the best Christmas lights, the best grass, just whatever it was. Until I'm gonna after you answer this, I'm gonna tell you I just had an incredible experience over this past weekend that maybe shifted my entire life.
Wow. Okay. I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
Going to track and field, I can remember 6th, 7th grade, Mario Ware and Ulysses Glover. I remember the names. They used to beat me every day. They were older, and the day that I was equal to them, in my head, I'm like, it's over for them. Winning. It's all about confidence, right? If you have the confidence that you're going to win and you've prepared to be in that environment, your confidence is going to give you a certain percentage of a boost to get you across to that next level. And I just think that a lot of times, because life is so busy and so much is going on, we don't focus on our wins. We focus on our losers. On our losses, right? And if we were able to shift, one of the things I say in my mind over and over and over again, and I just started doing this, was thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, over and over. And as I shift my mindset into being grateful, sometimes I'm sitting around like, did I just close a deal? Why am I feeling so good, right? And then I remember that I'm attempting to fill myself with gratitude so that I feel better, and then I'll act better, then at least at doing better and having better conversations. So I think part of it is innate, and a part of it is really wanting the best, wanting more than what you have, and whether it's the best for whatever level you're at, but you have to want more and have to want to do better than what you've been doing. And I just think a lot of times people beat themselves up so much they are unable to unravel what they've wrapped themselves into in this ball of negativity instead of focusing on winning.
Yeah. I used to always quote Vince Lombardi, and I don't know if it's really him or not, but I just believe that winning isn't everything. It's the only thing.
Right.
And I mean, literally, I finished second in a bunch of things over my career. I finished second in the state championships in Colorado. And I was devastated.
Right.
I was devastated. There's only first place and everyone else. Right. But I got to tell you, we won the California State Championships cross country my final year coaching there.
Congratulations.
And I remember everyone, because for 8 years, we finished third, second, and finally first. I remember when they made the announcement, because it was really close. They made the announcements, and the whole team and parents, everyone was going wild, yelling, laughing, screaming, crying. And I watched the scene like this, and I literally had about that much joy. And I started thinking, what am I going to do next year? And it was at that point, because I was being self-reflective, I go, something's not right here because I'm not enjoying it like everyone else is. So this past weekend-ish, I took my son to a Buddhist monastery in northern Vermont.
Okay.
I don't know anything about Buddhism. My son wanted to go. He's been thinking about going into a Buddhist monastery.
How old is your son?
He's 37.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
He's trying to figure out what to do in life, and that might be a path. I think it's actually a great path. I went there and we did everything. We started at 4:40 a.m. with chanting and meditation for a few hours. And then we had responsibility. So we had to work. I worked in the kitchen and mopping floors. And then we made lunch. And then we had chores. And then we had a personal educational thing. And then we did more education with them around Buddhism. And then we went back into the Zendo, something like that. And we did another several hours of meditation and then chanting, and then went to sleep. And one of the things I learned was that as humans, we suffer. And Buddhism is all about getting rid of suffering. And I started thinking that this competitiveness in me, if you don't win, I suffer. I remember as a little kid when the Baltimore Colts lost to the upstart New York Jets, I cried for like days. I was really suffering. I was so invested in that. And I've often done that. My poor Denver Broncos have had 8 losing seasons now.
Right.
And I'm suffering.
Yes.
And I'm going like, maybe there's a different or better, I shouldn't say better, just a different way of being in now I'm in this internal journey going like, I'm open to everything because as I get older, I'm learning, the more I learn, the more I don't know. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, isn't life interesting?
So suffering. So that just brings me back to a lot. We won the Big Ten championship. Track and field outdoor season. And I was very unhappy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was unhappy because we didn't do well in either relay, the 4x100 or the 4x400. So in my mind, we won, but
yeah.
Wow. So the suffering comes in from not being, so where does the suffering come from?
I think the suffering comes from the fact that we have desire. We have desire. And as humans, we're often disappointed in something in life. I mean, this plays out really well in intimate relationships too. We think we are with the perfect partner from us,
right? But
they're human just as we're human, right. And we disappoint each other. And when we disappoint ourselves or the other person, there's an element of suffering. And actually in Buddhism, they don't call it suffering. They call it, I think it was dharma. And the way that it was described to me is that if you think about a perfect wheel or a tire, and that it's perfectly symmetrical, 360 degrees, and it's perfect, and it rolls smoothly, then there's no suffering on the part of the bike or the car. But if there's any imperfections in the tire or maybe the road, there's a pothole, right, and you hit it, boom, it's less than the ideal perfect situation. That they call dharma. And that's the way life is. It's not suffering as in, someone really died and there's a big suffering and grief associated. It could be anything that is a pothole or an obstacle or isn't exactly what we wanted, desired, expected. There's an element of disappointment, and it's all in the mind. And part of this training is that you've got to change your mind. And we know how to change our mind to be super successful on the external world. But what about on the internal world? Can you really change your mind to eliminate suffering? And that they call enlightenment when you do that, because we're human. It's just fascinating for me to think about. I'm an engineer, so this stuff is woo-woo to me.
Right.
But I'm into understanding this and going like, this is the next area where maybe I just got to be competitive. I need to go be more enlightened than the Dalai Lama. Not that I'm going to be, because I'm not going to do some of those things or most of those things, but it does drive me in the curiosity, in the new learning, in the growth to go, this is something interesting to think about.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. This is really, really interesting because I find myself being much more introspective than I've ever been, and just realizing a lot of things that I would have normally not taken responsibility for. I'm now taking responsibility for those things because everything that we have issue with is all self-imposed. In the Marine Corps, it's officer candidate school. That's 10 weeks of the Marine Corps screening and evaluating the candidate, and the candidate is screening and evaluating the Marine Corps. There's no obligation or commitment. During officer candidate school, anytime I can raise my hand and say, hey, I want to go home, and they'll send me home. Well, when we were being introduced, right before we were introduced to the drill instructors, I don't remember who the colonel was, but he was saying, everything you experience here is going to be self-imposed. We're not going to stress you. We're not going to burden you. Everything you feel is going to be self-imposed. And when he said that, I don't know why I caught it. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And as I went through the 10 weeks, it is so on point. All the stress, because we wanted to be there or not. And everything that we experienced, good, bad, or indifferent, was all based on how we felt. So, I mean, and that is life. How do you show up for different environments? And do you take responsibility for what's going on in that moment? So, that's good stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
So how did you just said that, there's an awareness now. Do you think it's because of just getting older or experience, or asking your mind, I'm asking you, how did that thought come up for you?
I'm always, just like you, I'm always searching for more. Give me some more. Like in the Matrix, when Neo first was plugged in, he was like, I know Kung Fu. And he was like, give me more. Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I know you've been to some of his trainings, and I really offline can't wait to talk to you about that. Just listening to his message just really makes me more aware of what's going on. It's just, it's interesting how I reflect back on my life, how narrow-minded I was, and how just focused on just what I was thinking about, and really didn't have any empathy for what was going on with anyone else. And being a dad really makes me more aware of how I show up with my children and how they're impacted by just my energy level. If I'm having a good day, they're going to come in and have a good day. But I've also made myself aware that when I'm not in that space, they're kind of mirroring me, right? So it's just amazing. As I get older, I just pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around me versus just being all focused on me. It's just eye-opening.
Well, speaking of Joe Dispenza, I'm actually one of his corporate trainers in a company called NeuroChange Solutions. So I teach a 2-day class for him. And, I'm happy to talk with you anytime about that. But also, you mentioned something that I've just in the last few weeks I've gotten into, something called the Gene Keys. Have you heard of the Gene Keys?
No.
Okay, so it's a little bit out there too.
Okay, I love it.
But as part of it, you have this profile, and there's keys, and they're tied to your genetics, they claim. And we're to study the first gene key. And so the first gene key is your life's work. They are teaching us the art of contemplation. So I'm to focus on my life's work for the full month. So they say, slow down in order to get faster. Because I wanted to read the book, get it right away, implement it what I could, and then move on. They're saying, slow down. You're going to take a whole year to go through the book, and we're just going to talk about your life's work for a whole month.
Wow.
But by life's work isn't what you do. It is your vibrational frequency of how you show up with whatever you do. And you were just talking about that with your family. As you started thinking about, how do I show up?
Right.
And I think we sometimes think about it, but once you make your decision, your Marine Corps or track and field dedication, I'm going to figure out how to show up. I'm now saying, I've declared that I'm going to show up with gratitude in everything I do. And I've always kind of thought that I did, but I haven't been focused on it like I am now, where I go, what does that really mean? I've defined it sort of loosely, and I think I show up with a lot of energy. But just in the last 3 or 4 months, my energy level has gone up, and not just up, kind of sideways. So for example, I am living in Naples, Florida right now. I mean, literally every single person there is old, and they drive slow. On the freeway, they drive in the left lane going 55 or 65 when I like to go 90 plus or minus.
Right.
I think it comes from my track days. So I drive in the left lane. Sometimes I could go 90, 100 in the right lane because everyone's in the left lane.
Yeah.
And on the streets, I swear you go a half mile and there's a red light that lasts at least 10 minutes. And everyone's going 19 miles an hour. So I have this frustration for the last year or so that I've been living there. I started doing these gene keys, and I noticed that just last week I was driving on the freeway and I, kind of spacing out. And all of a sudden I noticed I was in the right lane driving 65 miles an hour, not worried about cars passing me, not worried about how I was going to beat every car to get there. And I go, maybe my life's work is different than I even thought. It's not about beating people. It's about creating an even more lovingly contagious, that's my theme, person, first to myself and then to the outside world. And now when I stop at the red lights for 5-10 minutes, which feels like an hour, yes, I start contemplating about my life's work. And I don't worry about it. And it's only been a short period of time. So I'm hoping this is going to last a while, but it's a really, really cool process.
So as you were talking about the process, you kind of answered it. But my question is, based on your energy being on 10 and everyone in your area being on 3, is it a repelling to them? Right. And I guess you kind of answered it because now it's balancing out. That's powerful because it seems like, when I'm on 10 and other people are not there, I have to kind of come down to bring them back up. But what you're tapping into is a whole different vibration.
It is. I can stay at a 10 and have everyone be at a 3 and not worry about it. I used to worry about it.
Wow. See, I need some of that. I need some of that.
Yeah.
That is great. That is great.
It's just so interesting because someone has been telling me about this particular process, and this isn't the end all. It just happened to be the one I'm in right now for at least 10 years, and I've ignored it until 4 weeks ago. And I call this sort of the Celestine prophecy kind of process. Yeah. I read this like 25, 30 years ago, and it was a story about the guy that all of a sudden he gets all these insights. Yep. And kind of the conclusion that I remember is that in our lives, there is stuff happening all the time to tell us what direction to go, and we mostly miss it. And becoming aware and opening your eyes to all the clues that are happening for us in our lives, we start to notice them, and then we can follow our intuition or the truth or God within us and follow a different path and learn the lessons we need to learn in life, or grow the way we need to do, or create the life that we want or maybe even deserve.
That's powerful. That's great. That's great.
But when I think about you, Asa, I wanted to have you on this show. I was a little bit scared to ask you because you're like way up here, and I just admire you so much for the way you speak. Did you always have this incredible gift of public speaking?
I would say, yes and no.
Oh, okay. Okay.
My first experience with public speaking was a play. I don't know what grade. It was below 7th grade. And I said my line at the wrong time, right? I stood up and said my line, and everyone looked at me and was like, that's not your line. So I had to sit down. Everyone laughed. And then, of course, when it was my turn to say my line, I didn't know it was my turn. They had to, Asa, now say your line, right? So that should have typically, for most people, just shut them out of being in the public speaking realm. But no, I just really enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy to see the light bulbs come on with people. I enjoy seeing and experiencing their energy and their transformation. And from some of the training I've been through on speaking, it's not about me. So many people, when they think about public speaking, like, oh, what if I mess up? And what if I do this and what if I do that? I'm just so comfortable because I'm focused on, education. The Latin word is to draw out. My goal is to draw out as much from people as I can, and I just enjoy it. So I guess it's just part of the innate part of me. I just really don't focus on me. I enjoy interacting and seeing people's responses to some of the things that I do or say.
I want to ask you, if you could give some advice or something to someone to ponder or contemplate on for their life to be a little bit better, what would you tell our audience?
Stop being so serious, right? Just relax a little bit and just pull back. One gentleman that I listened to a lot, he was like, when you're in a situation or an environment and it's serious, you got to get out of it, because that stifles growth and it stifles your ability to be open to what's going on. So my thing would just be, do your best to stop being so serious about it, because everyone is doing their best based on where they're coming from. And when I started understanding that, it's like, they're not doing that to get at me. They're not doing that to spite me. They're doing this because they're more pro survival. They're doing something to try to make sure that they are in a good position. And for me, as I remember those things when I'm interacting with people, I kind of pause, because it's not about me. Again, it's about them. And once you see that they are not doing something against you, but it's for them, it allows you to kind of relax a little bit in the environment.
That's great, Asa. So now, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What are your goals? What are you going to do in the next phase of your life?
Yeah. So in business, I plan to be a developer. I've done everything in real estate except develop land, develop a piece of, from ground up. So that's the next goal there. Stay connected with my children, to really help them become the best human beings that they want to be, and really help people grow themselves. I don't have a coaching program, but more my calling is really, when I'm posting on Facebook, TikTok, all the social media, is just really to get people to start thinking differently, because, I just turned 52.
Oh yeah, the 27th. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. And people, we get stuck in ruts. Right. So I really want to shake people up so they can say, hey, I am, 48 years old, 72 years old, and things aren't like what I want them to be. And I think people forget that they can change. All they have to do is make a decision to do something a little different. And it's just so uncomfortable, just to help people get comfortable with change and think differently.
So how or who would you want, if anyone, to reach out to contact you about financial services or coaching or educational services or whatever it is that you want to do in life? How would people reach you, and who would be the right kind of client that should call up Asa and say, hey, I need you?
Right. Someone who's open to change. Someone who is really at the point in their lives where they know if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to keep getting what they've gotten, and it's not what they want. Right. Someone who is really open to that. I've been really working with people in my age group, because we're so close to retirement. A lot of people in my age group are taking care of their children as well as their parents. Oh, man. And that's just such an amazing experience as well, that we never think about. I never thought about when I was 20 years old, like, I can't wait to be 50 and take care of my children and help my parents, and, they are independent as well, but they just still needed assistance, right? So someone who is really open to change and at a crossroads in their lives where they know that the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life, they don't want it to be like what they've been experiencing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. And how would they reach you?
They can reach me at phone number 312-883-9114, or email me.
So someone could just call you?
They can call.
You would pick up the phone?
Pick up the phone. If I don't, my assistant picks up the phone, and then I get on the phone. Or email me, apatterson@premier72.com.
Okay, awesome. Asa, it's been such a pleasure. I'm sorry we're kind of out of time. I think I could talk to you forever. I'm going to go get that phone number and call you up, and I'm open to change. And so maybe we can work together on an investment. Develop something. I want to develop a personal development community where like-minded people come together, heart-centered community. I've had this idea for many years now, so maybe we could collaborate on something like that.
Let's talk about it. I'm so happy that you reached out to me, and I'm excited for what we are going to do in the future. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to everything we have coming forward.
Thank you so much, Asa. Have a beautiful, beautiful almost spring and a little bit post your birthday.
Yes,
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. And talk to you.
All right.
All right.